I was asking for mixed units. Do they have mixed units with men and women?
Yes. All military armed forces are mixed, have female and men, and have different job and have different duty.
Also for infantry?
Yes, in France, yes.
Thank you.
I'm an infantry girl. So.
Great.
This picture is in 1967, when first time opened the school for military women, and the time was 2 years, these pictures.
Any further questions?
If you allow me. Okay. First of all, thank you for presentation and congratulations for your rank. It's something very, very important for all of us. I really appreciate your country, and I really appreciate something what you call Western countries. Morale, imperative, and really I appreciate that so much. But I would like to ask, do you have any problem, what we can call as sexual abuse or sexual harassment as experience in your country?
Thank you very much for your questions. I don't have any case. I don't know any case to be military armed forces, sexual and violence in women's with uniforms. But every time events have advisor for gender perspective. And maybe one time in 2 months, all the women discuss for problems of genders. But my opinion is, and there is not to be any case in armed forces for sex and violence in military armed forces.
If you allowed me, just say why I asked you. 2 years ago, we had the opportunity on TV Al Jazeera to see, how we call it, TV show, about experience of women in U.S. Army. Yeah. So it's very frappant fact that every second woman in U.S. Army is sexually abused. From time being in school, academy, and later. And it was really huge plus for Balkan area armed forces, from Croatia to Albania, that we exactly very rarely had that experience. And this is something what exactly express us or show us that a tradition is very positive behavior or very positive moment that we have in this area. So having colleagues, female and male colleagues, living together, working together, and we traditionally grow up respecting women as their mother, sister, or daughters, bringing us something what is very positive in nowadays societies. And because of that, I ask.
Thank you. My opinion is, I read many cases in USA for this case, but in my country, in armed forces in Albania, stopped alcohol during the job, stopped every units don't have alcohol, for example, in cafeteria or restaurant, or if one people or one
oficials or one woman used alcohol, they are out the military. Have case, I don't know, but law in military armed forces stop this phenomenon. I think every country has problems, but my country has more and more problems of violence for women, for example, in a rural zone. And if so, the TV every evening is a very huge problem. But in military, are the people are choose and love their job. I not remember any case or in military to be violence or to be sexy in military. Violence. Thank you.
If we don't have any further questions for General, then I'll give word to Vesna.
Thank you. It is very hard to speak after Army General, the first general of woman in Albanian Army. I was writing about and I'm very honored to be here today. So the best tool to overcome stereotypes is the personal example, and this is a great one. So thank you very much for what you're doing for all of us as woman parliamentary shoe, if you pronounce it well. I'll speak more from academic perspective. I'll speak about the gender perspective as a counter-terrorist tool. It is a pretty wide topic. Oh, thank you. Super. It is a pretty wide topic to be discussed. So I have chosen a few things that I think are important, and I will just throw it in the room and we'll discuss on in the question and answer session more. So first of all, speaking about terrorism, it's an old dog with new tricks. Let's see how it looks.
Nice, not easy.
Okay. So terrorism is as old as the society, but you would agree that with every day and every year and every decade, it is getting a new dimensions and new phenomena, and it urges for a different perception and for different action. Terrorism as defined, there is okay, super. Terrorism is discussed a lot, and is the biggest challenge of the security environment since 9/11, but it's still missing actually a common definition and common approach by the states and by the international institutions. Generally speaking, speaking on state practice, because states are subjects of international law and international community, terrorism has been approached as a criminal act of internal armed conflict, or act of international conflict, act of war. So it urges three different legal regimes, and we need the legal regimes for the applicability of the framework. In the first case, speaking about criminal act, it means that it is approached through the national law, and the use of force is police one. Speaking about international armed conflict, here we have the army and the humanitarian law and the law of armed conflict. Speaking about treating terrorism as internal war or internal armed conflict, it also looks for a different legal perspective, Common Article 3 and the national law. And it is also complicated, and the use of force is always complicated. For the most cases, we have the three of it in one, as it was the case in Afghanistan in the first phase of the conflict. So it was very hard for the security officers, border police and armed one, to counter it. And the use of force was pretty different in the same time for different situations. Another issue that is important about terrorism is that it affects values. So it is the general definition that can be extracted is that it is a use of force for political reason and for political cause. The counter-narrative of terrorism is also feminism as a value of the Western society that is addressed by terrorists generally. Unfortunately, feminism is still considered as a dangerous phenomenon. This here on the photo is the Russian Archiepiscopal Patriarch, actually. Sorry, I'm not good with church trends. Cyril, who says that feminism is a dangerous phenomenon that will lead to destruction of Russia. Unfortunately, he is not the only person speaking in this manner. being a feminist on the Balkan is for the most time being a soldier in a combat action. I think that everyone would agree with that. And the threshold for being called a feminist is also pretty low. It's enough just to say that you're urging for same addressing and for same treatment, not for special chances or for quotas. And you are called a feminist, and then you are which to be burned for the most of the cases, unfortunately. This is my personal perspective and experience, at least. Terrorism brought a new security paradigm, and the new security paradigm brought also a new approach to women and new and different security needs of a woman. 2008, Major General Patrick Hammett spoke that it is more dangerous to be a woman than a soldier in the new modern conflicts. And why do we speak about modern conflicts? Because it is also a great change of environment. The fall of Iron Curtain, for example, brought a new global dimensions. So we now have new actors, new stakeholders, the globalization aspects, and we also have the new trend of nation building. For example, the case of ex-Yugoslavia and the case of former Soviet Republic speaks enough about that, because the dissolution of the countries brought to new national building processes that also brought to new identity conflicts, and building identity was affecting women in different way, because the sexual violence was also used as a tactic of war in this region. However, I would also like to give into view a few legal aspects. It is the first thing is that international law was meant to be acted by states, not by individuals. And terrorists are not states, it's non-state actors that are using different approach. Terrorism as such is not a group, it's not individuals, it goes in between using the gray zone of the international law. Because the use of force against non-state actors is not something that has been agreed. And the line between human rights activists and use of force is pretty tiny. Because you cannot, it's how you prosecute them, it's how you accuse them, it is how you track record them. The idea that there is a global war on terror is not very acceptable, because you cannot see the planet as a battlefield, because then you have another issue and another problem of track record needs. There is not a specific legal regime applicable to terrorism. So currently we have the international human rights law that is generally a scheme of international public law using in peacetime, and the law of armed conflict, use in bello plus use of bello aspects, that is used in a state of war. But I'll note again, for having a state of war, you need two states. And here we have asymmetric warfare. I mentioned something about change of environment. I would also like to add the cultural relativity here as a problem, and the legal and policy gaps that are important. The new role of women. This is this quote that I have here is from Amos Shaba editorial. This is an Egyptian newspaper, a radical one. It says that it is woman who teaches you today a lesson in heroism, who teaches you the meaning of jihad and the way to die a martyr's death. It is a woman who has shocked the enemy with her thin, meager, and weak body. It is a woman who blew herself up and with her exploded all the myths about a woman's weakness, submissiveness, and enslavement. And I think that this is very crucial quote. I'm not pro quoting radical newspapers, but I think that it is very useful for the academic research here, because it can show us all the aspects that are important and that we are sometimes forgetting about. I will now go back to the United Nations Security Council resolution on women, peace and security as some framework that is provided about women and radicalization, not directly but indirectly, because also UN is missing a more cohesive framework on women. United Nations Resolution 1325 was a great cornerstone, a milestone. I do not agree that it's something that should be completed, but it is a way forward. It should be worked on, but it is also like a trigger, like a never-ending hurdle. So we need to keep in mind, even 100 years after, even if in perfect society, we need to keep in mind the legacy of 1325. In 1820, this was another resolution of the UN Security Council on Women, Peace and Security. It was brought 8 years later. It explicitly links sexual violence as a tactic of war, and what is more important is the fact that it is seeing sexual violence as a trigger for using of force as a threat to the peace and security. Although it never happened an action of the United Nations Security Council upon this resolution, like a military action. And I think that, for example, the situation in Syria is urging for something like that for any case. Still, we do not have such a track record. Then we had 1888, the same year, 2008, that mandates peacekeeping missions to protect women and children from sexual violence during armed conflict. Then we have the resolution, sorry, maybe something, 1889, the next year, that is strengthening women's participation in peace process to all the phases of the conflict. Then we again had another resolution addressing sexual violence during armed conflict, somehow all the time repeating the sexual violence, although it is not the only problem. It is a key problem, very important one, but for addressing the sexual violence, we need to also address the other gender perspectives. It is a much wider and much broader picture to be missed. Because, you know, gender equality is not only about women, and I'm getting very nervous when only women speak about women. Gender is important for the society as such, not for me as a woman or for the general or for anyone who is here in this room. Because